War films often glorify heroism, explosions, and battlefield triumphs, but some of the most haunting, morally complex stories have quietly slipped through the cracks. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on 11 overlooked war films that refuse cliches, challenge our assumptions, and linger in the mind long after the credits roll. From bitterly silent Soviet landscapes to ethical quagmires in Vietnam, these films reveal the human cost of conflict in ways mainstream cinema rarely dares to show. Number 11, Red Angel, 1966. In post-war Japan, the human cost of battle found a haunting voice in Red Angel. Directed by Yasuzo Masumura, the film shifts focus from soldiers and generals to a single field nurse, caught in the grinding machinery of the Second Sino-Japanese War. The black and white cinematography emphasizes exhaustion and moral erosion, showing war not as action-packed spectacle, but as relentless, dehumanizing suffering. The protagonist, a nurse tasked with tending to wounded soldiers, witnesses horrors that blur the lines between right and wrong. She treats enemies and allies alike, but the tide of human cruelty washes over her relentlessly. There are no grand victories here, just the gnawing ache of survival and moral compromise. The film's unflinching approach to death, injury, and psychological trauma gives it a disturbing immediacy that remains unparalleled. Audiences expecting a patriotic or romanticized war story were shocked. Critics at the time struggled to categorize it. Yet the film's restraint is its strength. Every close-up, every quiet moment in the field hospital, feels loaded with existential weight. You don't leave Red Angel thinking about strategy or heroics. You leave thinking about humanity itself, battered and bleeding. This is a war film for those who understand that battles aren't always fought with guns, and victories aren't always celebrated. Number 10, The War Below, 1995. Hidden in the annals of British television, The War Below illuminates one of WWI's least glamorous theaters, underground tunnel warfare. Men spent months digging through mud and stone, often under constant threat of suffocation or sudden bombardment. The film's claustrophobic cinematography captures this with suffocating precision, immersing viewers in the oppressive darkness, where tension is measured not by bullets fired, but by the slow, creeping anxiety of collapse. The story follows a group of engineers tasked with undermining enemy positions, showing both the ingenuity and futility of their mission. The film doesn't romanticize the soldiers. It presents them as men fraying at the edges, caught in a war that seems to have no purpose beyond attrition. Every explosion, every tremor, every whispered command echoes the existential dread of men who are simultaneously architects of destruction and victims of it. Despite its small release, the film is a masterclass in tension and empathy. The sound design is almost tactile, the clink of tools, the shudder of earth, the muffled cries, all of it reminding viewers that war is as much about endurance as combat. The War Below quietly asserts itself as one of the most authentic, immersive depictions of WWI, a film that honors the invisible sacrifices lost to history. Number 9, The Siege of Jadotville, 2016. In 1961, a small Irish UN battalion faced an overwhelming force in Congo's mining town of Jadotville. The Siege of Jadotville dramatizes this real-life confrontation with tactical intelligence and moral subtlety, an underdog story wrapped in geopolitics and betrayal. While Hollywood often overlooks peacekeeping missions, this film embraces the tension of strategy, honor, and survival under fire. Commanded by the stoic Pat Quinlan, the soldiers confront not just a numerically superior enemy, but also the disinterest of distant superiors. The siege becomes a crucible of leadership, bravery, and ethical ambiguity, as the men weigh obedience against their instinct to protect civilians and each other. Director Richie Smith avoids sensationalism. Every gunshot is measured, every tactic plausible, lending the story authenticity that rarely accompanies war films today. The emotional resonance comes not just from the firefights, but from the moral victory that is invisible to the world, maintaining integrity when the world abandons you. Audiences may be surprised at the film's sophistication, from its precise action choreography to the humanistic lens on soldiers often reduced to footnotes in history books. Jadotville is a quiet triumph, reminding us that courage isn't always televised, and sometimes, losing in the eyes of the world doesn't diminish heroism. Number 8. 84 Charlie MoPic, 1989. Long before found footage horror became a genre staple, 84 Charlie MoPic quietly reinvented the Vietnam War film. Presented entirely through the lens of a fictional U.S. Army cameraman, the film adopts a raw documentary style that strips war of spectacle and replaces it with disorientation, fear, and fatal inevitability. There is no musical score guiding emotion, no cinematic framing offering relief, only what the camera captures and what it misses. The story follows a small, long-range reconnaissance patrol moving through the Vietnamese jungle. The cameraman narrates casually at first, documenting daily routines, joking soldiers, and mundane tension. But as the patrol pushes deeper into hostile territory, the tone darkens. The camera becomes unstable. Conversations grow tense. Now silence becomes threatening. The jungle closes in, visually and psychologically, until the lens itself feels like a liability rather than protection. What makes 84 Charlie MoPic so effective is its refusal to editorialize. Death arrives abruptly and without ceremony. There are no heroic last stands, no dramatic speeches, just confusion, panic, and sudden absence. The film understands that war rarely announces its climaxes. Instead, it dissolves people quietly, leaving behind unfinished sentences and abandoned gear. Released with minimal promotion, the film was largely ignored, dismissed as low-budget or gimmicky. In hindsight, it feels prophetic. Its immersive realism predates modern combat documentaries and video game aesthetics, yet remains more honest than most big-budget war epics. The camera does not glorify violence, it merely survives it, until it doesn't. Number 7. When Trumpets Fade, 1998. When Trumpets Fade plunges viewers into the hellish landscape of the Hurtgen Forest during World War II, where survival, not glory, defines the soldier's experience. The film follows a hesitant officer tasked with guiding his men through relentless mud, artillery, and enemy fire, exposing the chaotic, grinding reality of combat. There are no cinematic victories here, only fear, exhaustion, and the slow erosion of trust. The narrative avoids romanticizing battle. The camera lingers on worn faces, tattered uniforms, and the physical and emotional toll of endless skirmishes. Dialogue often conveys the futility of the mission as much as it advances plot. Small victories are overshadowed by the unpredictability of death and the indifference of command. It is a meditation on the fragility of human morality and the incremental decay of courage when confronted with persistent danger. By emphasizing psychological realism over spectacle, the film captures the terror and moral ambiguity often sanitized in larger productions. The soldier's fear is not just of the enemy, but of failing one another, of becoming complicit in senseless death, and of confronting orders that make survival seem secondary. The cinematography and sound design heighten immersion, from the crunch of snow underfoot to the distant echoing thuds of artillery. When Trumpets Fade was largely overlooked upon release, but its value lies in its honesty. It exposes the quiet horrors of war and the moral compromises demanded of those who endure it. This is not a story about glory or victory. It is a study of endurance, ethics, and humanity in extremis, capturing the essence of the soldier's lived experience. Number 6. The Gray Zone, 2001. Tim Blake. Nelson's. The Gray Zone brings audiences inside Auschwitz, confronting one of history's darkest moral dilemmas. The film focuses on the Sonderkommando, prisoners compelled to assist in the Nazi death machine while plotting acts of resistance. Here, survival is inseparable from complicity, and every decision carries profound ethical weight. The film's strength lies in restraint. Scenes are meticulously composed, emphasizing shadows, confined spaces, and human faces contorted by fear and resolve. There is little music, no overt dramatization, just the crushing reality of life under unimaginable circumstances. Dialogue and action are deliberate, and each choice underscores the tension between conscience and necessity. Unlike conventional war narratives that rely on battlefield heroics, The Gray Zone challenges viewers to confront the ambiguity of human behavior in extremis. It forces reflection on ethical compromise, personal responsibility, and the cost of survival when moral clarity is impossible. Characters are neither wholly heroic nor villainous. They are human, flawed, and tragically constrained by circumstances beyond their control. Though overshadowed upon release, the film is profoundly unsettling and essential. Its stark realism, moral complexity, and ethical courage establish it as one of the most intellectually and emotionally rigorous war films of the modern era. The Gray Zone demonstrates that the most powerful conflicts often unfold within the human conscience rather than on the battlefield. Number 5. A Midnight Clear, 1992. Set against the snowy backdrop of the Ardennes during the final months of World War II, A Midnight Clear offers a quiet, haunting meditation on the human cost of combat. Unlike conventional war films, it focuses on moral dilemmas rather than grand strategy. A small American reconnaissance unit discovers a group of young German soldiers, isolated and weary. The encounter forces both sides to navigate trust, fear, and the ambiguity of wartime ethics. The cinematography emphasizes stillness and isolation. Snow-covered landscapes become a character itself, reflecting vulnerability and fragility. Every gesture, glance, and hesitant step carries tension. The soldiers' interactions highlight the thin line between compassion and survival, friendship and betrayal. Director Keith Gordon avoids melodrama, allowing quiet moments, a shared meal, a whispered conversation, or the hush of falling snow to communicate more about war than any battle sequence could. The film's power lies in its refusal to simplify. Decisions are moral puzzles, and consequences are immediate and irreversible. The Germans are not caricatures of evil, nor are the Americans romanticized heroes. Both groups are human, struggling with the absurdity and cruelty of conflict. Audiences are left to contemplate the fragility of life, the weight of conscience, and the ways war forces ordinary people into impossible choices. Critically overlooked, A Midnight Clear endures as a subtle, profoundly affecting war film. Its intimacy, and the ethical complexity and emotional realism make it a standout in a genre often dominated by spectacle. It reminds viewers that the quiet, morally ambiguous moments of war can resonate far longer than heroic set-piece battles. Number 4. The Beast of War, 1988. Set in the mountains and deserts of Afghanistan during the Soviet invasion, The Beast of War transforms a tank-bound unit into both predator and prey. Director Kevin Reynolds crafts a tense, claustrophobic war thriller that examines fear, survival, and the moral corrosion of soldiers isolated from home and humanity. The story follows a Soviet tank crew navigating hostile terrain while being hunted by Afghan rebels. Reynolds' camera work alternates between sweeping vistas and tight, oppressive interiors of the tank, in creating a dual sense of vulnerability and omnipresent danger. The soldiers are humanized through moments of fear, camaraderie, and moral reflection, yet the machine of war gradually erodes individuality and ethics. The film does not romanticize combat. Every gunshot, every ambush, every narrow escape underscores futility and randomness. The enemy is both invisible and relentless, emphasizing unpredictability rather than clear-cut heroism. Sound design enhances immersion. Metallic clanks of the tank, distant explosions, and whispered commands pull the viewer into a constant state of tension. Despite limited distribution, The Beast of War is a masterclass in moral ambiguity and psychological realism. It captures the isolation, exhaustion, and terror of conflict with rare precision, proving that war's true horror is not just physical destruction, but the erosion of the human spirit. Audiences who discover it often rank it among the most gripping and thought-provoking war films of the 1980s. Number 3. Casualties of War, 1989. Brian De Palma's Casualties of War is a searing, unflinching examination of moral collapse in Vietnam. The film follows a U.S. squad whose routine operations devolve into a nightmare of complicity and abuse, challenging the viewer to confront the boundaries of human decency under extreme circumstances. Michael J. Fox and Sean Penn deliver career-defining performances, portraying soldiers navigating fear, loyalty, and conscience in a landscape stripped of moral clarity. De Palma eschews stylized combat for psychological realism. The film lingers on faces, gestures, They'll end conversations, forcing viewers to reckon with both the banality and brutality of atrocity. Every decision, from action to inaction, carries weight, emphasizing that in war, consequences are immediate and often irreversible. Ethical compromise is not abstract. It is felt, experienced, and impossible to ignore. Unlike traditional Vietnam War films that lean on heroism or narrative catharsis, Casualties of War presents a morally messy, emotionally draining truth. There are no clear victories. There is only survival and the haunting residue of choices made under duress. De Palma's direction, paired with visceral performances, creates a sense of complicity for the audience, pulling them into the ethical morass. Overlooked at the time for its uncomfortable subject matter, the film has since earned recognition for its courage and honesty. It stands as one of the most morally complex and affecting war films of the late 20th century, demonstrating that the true battlefield often lies not in enemy lines, but within the human conscience. Number 2. The Ascent, 1977. L.M. Klimov's. The Ascent is a masterclass in existential war cinema, set against the frozen expanse of Nazi-occupied Belarus. Black and white cinematography captures both the stark beauty and the lethal austerity of the snowbound landscape, reflecting the moral and physical extremities the characters endure. Unlike conventional war films, this is not about strategy or conquest. It is about survival, loyalty, and the disintegration of humanity under the weight of occupation. The narrative follows two Soviet partisans caught behind enemy lines. Their capture forces them into a brutal moral crucible. One resists collaboration at all costs, while the other wavers, torn between self-preservation and honor. Klimov's direction leaves no room for cinematic comfort. Every frostbitten hand, every hollow gaze, and every act of betrayal is a meditation on human vulnerability. The snow-laden terrain becomes an omnipresent character, emphasizing isolation and inevitability. The Ascent excels in its unflinching portrayal of ethical collapse and spiritual resilience. Sound and silence are employed with surgical precision. The crunch of snow underfoot, the distant crack of gunfire, the hollow sigh of surrender, all immersing the audience in the relentless pressure of survival. There is no moral simplification. The film challenges viewers to confront fear, duty, and conscience as forces as deadly as bullets. Overlooked outside of cinephile circles, The Ascent remains one of the most profound war films ever made. Its exploration of loyalty, courage, and human endurance transcends temporal and geographic boundaries, making it as relevant today as it was on release. By stripping away spectacle and ideology, Klimov creates a war film that is meditative, horrifying, and ultimately transformative, a true existential journey through conflict. Number 1. The Ninth Configuration, 1980. William Peter Blatty's The Ninth Configuration defies conventional genre labels. While set in the aftermath of the Vietnam War, it is more a psychological and philosophical exploration than a battlefield epic. A remote psychiatric castle houses soldiers traumatized by combat, each confronting guilt, faith, and sanity. The film examines the invisible wounds of war, the internal battles that rage long after the last shot is fired. Blatty blends dark humor, surreal imagery, and existential inquiry, presenting characters whose struggles are as intellectual as they are emotional. Every scene becomes a meditation on trauma, redemption, and human resilience. The soldiers' interactions explore moral ambiguity, loyalty, and the fragility of belief under extreme stress. There are no traditional victories, only breakthroughs of understanding, fleeting moments of clarity, and the ongoing negotiation between fear and courage. Cinematography and pacing enhance the thematic depth. Shadows, sparse lighting, and carefully composed interiors reflect the internal conflicts of the characters, while dialogue oscillates between wit, despair, awe, and philosophical reflection. The film's unorthodox structure challenges viewers to reconsider the nature of heroism, sanity, and human purpose in the shadow of conflict. Initially perplexing to audiences expecting conventional war drama, The Ninth Configuration has since earned cult status for its originality and depth. It proves that the most potent wars are often fought inside the mind, and that cinema can illuminate the psychological cost of combat with as much intensity as the physical. In ranking this as number one, we celebrate a film that transforms war into a profound meditation on morality, faith, and the human condition itself. From frozen forests to desert wastelands, from moral quagmires to existential trials, these 11 overlooked war films remind us that the true cost of conflict is measured in human courage, compromise, and conscience. They linger in memory, challenging our assumptions and proving that the most powerful battles are often fought within.